Hey yo, it's Guido, Coffee Talk Supplemental. It is, what is today? Tuesday, and we have a marathon. Kind of a pop up. We sort of suspected something was coming, but even the community contributors didn't have any initial essay. There was a leak on something, I don't know if it was in relation to this EBR challenge, but somebody got fired, someone got in trouble. This is why we can't have nice things. People love to leak, gets clicks, gets likes, all that kind of garbage. But anyway, this kind of snuck up on everybody. But not really if you were paying attention. There was an EBR crew that was for sale last week, might still be for sale, was part of a package deal. So that really kind of should have clued you in that something like this was happening. However, this one is a little different. You know, the marathons have been generally experience based, and then they brought in the idea where with tier 10s you could do some different things. Well, this one has quite a few different things on both sides, either what I would refer to as the common man side and then the very good player side or the tier 10 side. They've changed it around just a little bit, and the win requirement piece is back in some cases as well. We've had marathons with win requirements and experience and all kinds of things. So let's break it down a little bit, and I'll do the math, at least my guesstimates on what you would have to do as an average player to get this thing. To a large extent, I can't give you any idea as a good player because they're kind of wacky, and it's really going to be to taste, as in, no kidding, how good are you? If you can get through what is now tier 9 and 10 missions or phases before you would naturally get through the one that you can do from tier 6 to 10. But I'll explain that as we go. First thing you do is, if you're in the garage, obviously go to missions. I'm glad that they've split this thing up. If they have an event, this isn't an event, you've got the challenge here. Challenge on wheels, that's for the EBR. That is your prize, which was a rental. Wasn't a rental actually. We had some rental codes for people, and we tested it out on the live server, the CCs, employees, and then up to 10 people that we gave codes to. It was pretty fun, nice tank. They have subsequently taken that from the community contributors account because they've changed the stats of it a little bit, and they knew they had this big event coming up. So we're getting ready to start. It's going to start on the 21st. It's which is Thursday. Interesting. Starts on Thursday as opposed to on a Friday. And it will go for, I want to say 14 days. I've got it right over here. I had to dig around. Unfortunately, it's not up in the header, and it's also not right there, which I don't really understand why not, but it isn't. It goes from the 21st to the 6th of March. All right, well, they said 14 days. What do we got? Yes, 14 days. That will obviously play into the math. The maths, we'll talk about that in a minute. So we have stage 1. Stage, tiers, prestige. We have so many terms for different levels of things. It can't be a level, though. It has to be something other, like a stage or prestige or tier. Anyway, challenge on wheels. Stage 1. Stage 1. Destroy 3 vehicles one time, cost 3,000. Average player, all right, these are numbers for average player. I put 4. Maybe you accomplish that in 4 battles, but it could be a dozen battles before you get there if you're an average player. Tier 9 and 10. So remember now, these supposedly easier ones that if you're good and can knock it out are now tier 9 and 10, not just tier 10. That's a good thing. For the right side over here, it is tier 6 to 10, so you at least need a tier 6 to make this thing happen. I would submit you probably need a tier 8 because on the average XP piece or the XP part, the ones that are requiring experience points, base experience points, you really need a tier 7, 8 or higher to get to those numbers reliably. If you're at tier 6, a lot of times there's just not enough hit points and whatnot out there in order to get some of these numbers. We'll talk about that as we go. For the common man, it is 3,000 total base experience, only counting top 10 finishes. That's important. That seems pretty easy. The first one always is. I estimated that would take about 6. What I'm not putting in there is slot for a bad game where you did not get top 10, or even a win that you didn't get top 10, and that's going to happen. What I did there, the math I used was 500 experience as an average. And then, of course, in 3,000 points, it would take you 6 battles to knock that out. So the first one, pretty easy. We'll move on to number 2, stage 2. We've got earn at least 800 points of base experience 5 times. All right, that's not really that easy at tier 9 and 10. A lot of good players up there. I'm estimating about 10 battles to make that happen for an average player. And then win 7 battles. For all the maths on win, I'm giving it a straight 50% win requirement. But realize there's also some battles lost because you've got to be among the top 10 players on your team by experience. You have a tomato game, you're number 12, and your team wins, you don't get the credit. All right, so I'm estimating 14 at a 50% win rate, but you can get a little slop in there by either doing better or also making sure that you're in the top 10. Stage 3. Cause at least 3,500 damage 6 times. I'm estimating 18. I times that by 3. If you have any tanks that you average 3,500 damage in, I would recommend you play those at tier 9 and 10. That's pretty high, actually, for an average player. Some good players are going to knock this one out pretty quickly. Pretty quickly. Some of these, for very good players, are going to be kind of easy. Some of them are going to be a bit of a slog. For an average player, that's going to be pretty difficult. On the other side, you've got 15,000 base experience while in the top 10. Again, I doubled that number, the 15,000, basically to 30 games at an average of 500 experience per game. But remember, there's some lost games in there probably for not being in the top 10 if you tomato out. So 30 games there. Stage 4, we've got 8 times. Earn at least 950 points base experience 8 times. And that's there. That's up there. All right. There's no requirement to be on top of anything, but you will be at 950. Got to do that 8 times. I'm estimating I'm timesing that by 3, 24 times for an average player to maybe knock that one out. And I'm probably lowballing on the left side of things here. 25 wins. Ugh, man. The win requirement one drives me absolutely batty. Same discussion as earlier. I doubled that for a 50% win rate to 50 games. With some slop, you can build in for yourself on either having a bad day and not playing at 50%, or also, too, added potentially not being in the top 10 because that requirement is still there. Stage 5, we are at cause at least 20% of the total amount of damage caused by your team 8 times. At this point, I stopped pretty much estimating most of the left side for fights, for battles, because this one is, that one's a little bit interesting. 20% of the total amount of damage caused by your team at tier 9 and 10, mind you, with that hit point pool. Good luck on that one. I'm not even going to guess what you may need on that one as an average player. On the right side, 30,000 experience points base and among the top 10. So again, at 500 a game as an average, also needing to be in top 10, then that's 60 games for tier 5 or stage 5. For stage 6, looking over here, we've got 14 times 950 points base experience, 14 times in the top 3 by experience earned. You're probably going to be in the top 3 at 950, not necessarily, but more than likely. So that's not as big a player, but still, you could have 951 and be 4 if your team had a good day and there was 3 guys ahead of you. I tripled that. This is the last time I'm going to estimate any of the numbers for the left side to 42, just for kind of a guess for an average player to manage that. And one of every 3 games doing that is probably low ball, or probably high balling how good an average player would be at tier 9 and 10. I wouldn't even think about that. On the right side, we've got win 35 battles among the top 10. Again, I doubled that one at tier 6 to 70 battles, with the same caveats of you got to be in the top 10. At stage 7, we've got 14 times 4,000 hit points, 14 times. Destroy at least 2 enemy vehicles. Available only for tier 9 and 10. I just put NA on that. I wouldn't even bother. 14 times at 4,000 damage. Maybe I do that in 100 games. Maybe at tier 9 and 10. I don't know. For an average player, I think that one's out of reach. And you will very quickly do this one before. Although, this is interesting because be among the top 10 players on your team by experience earned 80 times. This is a new one. We haven't really seen this one, I don't think. 80 times. Top 10 experience. No win requirement, which is nice. 80 times. I added you got to at least do 80 games. I added a slop of 20 more and called it 100. So if you look at this, maybe in 100 battles, before 100 battles, you'll get 4,000 hit points 14 times and destroy at least 2 enemy vehicles. It would be interesting, and I think you could probably play tier 9s and do all of these things, and maybe you trip the left one first. So that might be a technique that you would use on this one, is just plan on playing tier 9s, and it would cover being able to get the left side, and if you happen to trip it before the right side, good on you. And that's probably the best way to go about this thing. If you're grinding something at a lower tier, or you want to use premiums at tier 8, then remember you're not going to be able to trip these first. So that's a decision you're going to have to make technique-wise on how to do this thing. So that's a lot of battles. We're going up to stage 8, 14 times as the top player on both teams by damage caused. Well, that's interesting, because how many times have you seen that losing guy get that super high number? So you're going to need top player on both teams by damage caused 14. Oh, no win requirement. Never mind. So not required. It's okay then if you lose. But you still need to have at least 3,000 damage, and available only for tier 9 and 10. I didn't even guess on that. I won't even guess. Top guy of the whole game, average player, you're the top. Be honest with yourself. How often do you do that? Do you do that 14 times in 80 battles? Because I'm estimating 40,000 experience among the top 10 to be at least 80 battles with a 500 experience average for an average player. Those numbers will come down the better you are, obviously, as you average better experience. Okay, so we go on to tier 9. Finish the battle as the top player in your team by experience earned 20 times. Not damage, but this time experience earned 20 times. And be among the top 10 on your team for experience earned 90 times. I added some slop onto that one. I called that 120 battles for the average player to be among the top 10 players on your team by experience. You are at least doing 90, right? You have to have 90. You're probably not going to be there every time. That's maybe a little more slop than required, because it's 30 extra battles right there. So that number may be highballing it just a little bit, but it's at least 90. So let's call it 100 easily. Well, I'll give you a 10% where you're not in the top 10 coming in there. So another 100 battles, 120 battles. And stage 10. Finish the battle as a top player on your team by experience earned 20 times, cause at least 2,500 hit points of damage. It would be very difficult, except in losses, I think, or really bad losses, to be the top player by experience and not have 2,500 damage in tier 9 and 10. Break, you could do it on a light tank, so you get 1,000 damage and 8,000 spotting. You're not going to trip this, which is really irritating, to be quite honest, and really shows a little bit of lack of foresight in here. Lights get hurt by that kind of thing, so a light tank's not going to have a good time with this. Neither is artillery, to be honest. They have a hard time being top experience. And then over here we've got 45,000 base experience. Remember, the base experience and the win requirement ones are the ones we've seen before. This is kind of a standard one. They get up to 45, 50,000 usually at the last stage of these marathons. This one happens to be 45,000, and I just straight up doubled that to 90 battles. So I did the math. For an average player, not worrying about the left side, but talking about the right side over there, is going to be 600 battles, I think, minimum. 14 days. 600 divided by 14 is 43 battles a day to knock this marathon out, which I think is pretty well on par with a lot of the marathons before, but it's a little bit overcomplicated in the things you have to do. It's a marathon. It really should just have one thing, and I do this one thing for a marathon, and once I finish it, I got it. This goofing around and thinking about what I'm doing next and all that drives me just a little bit crazy on the marathons, and is a little bit more fiddly than I would like. There is a write-up on the webpage. Check it out on their on the portal, and they do talk about how they were trying to change things up a little bit and make it a little bit more interesting. And while I appreciate that, this doesn't seem like the thing you would do that on, and some of these requirements are really wacky. I think what I'm going to do, actually, potentially, is grab some tier 9s and 10s and see if I can do this marathon and see how many of these I trip from the left side before I get to the right side finish. That will be a little bit interesting. I don't have any data for it. I also don't have any even anecdotal data of somebody saying, hey, I'm a good player and I knocked out the marathon purely doing the left-hand side, and I did it in 150 battles or 200 battles or something very much lower than the right side, which is kind of the point of having that left side over there, is to allow, not allow, but give an opportunity to do it with less battles if you're good enough or lucky enough. But there you go. There's the marathon. You're getting the EBR. That was taken out of the CC's accounts. They've re-wickered it a little bit. The numbers are out there somewhere, I think, what they changed on it. The boost is gone. Remember that. It's a Tier 8 premium French wheeled tank. It was a lot of fun. I did enjoy it quite a bit. It actually has 8 wheels, whereas the standard Tier 8, Tech Tree Tier 8 has the 6 wheels, three on the side. 6 wheels over there. So I want to let you guys know what's going on with that. That's my guesstimation, somewhere around 600 battles. Depending on how good you are, if you're better, it's going to be less. If you're worse or having a bad 2 weeks, it's going to be more than that probably, but it'll give you a general estimate. If you counted on 50 battles a day, you'd get there. But holy cow, that's that's a lot. I've done that before when I was not working and doing some other things, having a lot of extra time. But that's quite a few. But it's a marathon, right? It's meant to reward people who go to extreme lengths to get the tank. I think, and here's what I don't know, and here's where my homework would have been nice if I'd actually done it. You can buy it, and then yes, so there it is. If you for example, if you complete 5 of the stages, then you'll get a 50% bonus. I just wanted to make sure that was still there. I forgot to read it. All right, that's it, guys. Supplemental Coffee Talk. Thanks for coming by. To all the new viewers, appreciate you guys showing up. The new subscribers out there, we're getting close. We're almost to 1,000. Got a good boost from Klaus Kellerman. Shout out to him. Thanks, appreciate that, dude. And that is it. We will see you. Enjoy the marathon.